Hey, I'm Adam Aldridge. I'm with the East Coast Ultra Bros. I'm here sitting down with Daniel Cates, who just ran the Georgia section of the AT in 20 hours, 30 minutes, 7 seconds, setting the new men's supported FKT record. So we've known Daniel for a little bit. So Daniel, just give a little bit about yourself, where you're from, kind of your journey and everything like that.
So my name's Daniel Cates, born and raised in North Georgia, 34 years old. I was born in April 1987. Just started running 2 years ago. I ran my first mile ever June 13th, 2019.
So, Daniel, you've only been a runner for about 2 years now, which most people run for a lot longer before they jump into something like a FKT attempt. Um, and you've accomplished a lot already. You have the FKT also on the Jake Mountain Trail loop, which is about 10 miles, 1,200 feet a gain. Did that about an hour and a half. You've also run a 424 50K, which I know you don't consider fast, but I think a lot of people would consider that part of the fast group now. And this is your third time doing the Georgia section of the AT. So why jump straight into ultras? Kind of like talk about getting into it, jumping into this long, crazy distance in just a short amount of time.
So after I ran my first mile, a couple of friends of mine that I grew up with invited me to do a half marathon with them. It was a vacation races, the Great Smoky Mountain Half Marathon on the road. And I did the half marathon, and I thought I was gonna die for about 12 and a half miles, and then I saw the finish line, and I did full sprint through the finish line. And afterwards, I was like, man, that felt really good. Running 13 miles was fun. Maybe I should run further. And it's kind of been addicting ever since. Just how far can you go? How fast can you do it? Can you do it by yourself? Can you not? That's the intriguing thing for me. I love the concept of going out for like a 30 plus mile a day by yourself. No, no civilization anywhere, no help, no, just go out there and get it done kind of thing. Really intriguing to me for some reason.
So having done the AT 3 times and being someone from North Georgia, we have a lot of other trails systems, right? We have the DRT, everyone really knows the Coosa Loop, and everyone knows the AT from a lot of other runners as well. So for you, why the AT? Why this particular section? Why this particular trail is something you want to go for?
So my first long trail run before my first ultra, I went and I did Woody Gap to Neal's Gap and back, which is about 22 miles with quite a bit of vert in it. And at the time, my longest run was a 21-mile road run. And I had no idea what I was getting into at all. And I went out there and did really good on the way down to Neal's, and then I like twisted my knee and had to come back up with a bum knee, and then like literally hop and skip 9 miles back to my car because, well, how am I going to get home? Like you just kind of have to figure it out at that point. And after that, almost all of my training was just on the AT because it was really easy to not get lost. You know, if you don't see a white blaze, you messed up and you need to turn around and find one. So like that was part of it. It was just easy to go out there and, I can go to Woody Gap and head north or south. You can get any kind of mileage you want. There's nice easy sections, like you can go to Hog Pen and head towards Low Gap, and you have about 5 miles of downhill. You can just fly, and then on the way back out, it's a 5 mile climb with like 1,200 feet. So you can fly back out too. It's not that bad. Well, not that bad. I guess it depends on who it is, but there's the Georgia section of the AT offers a lot. It really does. You can get everything from like buffed out single track pine bed to pure boulders and rocks going up Blue Mountain. So I don't know. It just really called to me after the first one out there, because I think it took me 6 hours that day to do Woody to Neal's and back because of my knee. And I was like, man, that was a life lesson. Let's try that again.
So through the whole Georgia section, what's your favorite part of the AT? What part you always kind of want to go back to and run?
Definitely the border down to Diggs Creek.
Okay.
Because the trail changes the further north you go. And once you get past Dix Creek Gap and you start heading towards the North Carolina border, you start to get an idea of what the trails are like up in North Carolina. You get a lot less rocks, a lot less roots, and it kind of, I don't want to say it opens up, but like there's a beauty to how well groomed it is compared to what you just had to get through to get up there, you know? So that's definitely my favorite, like my favorite run's probably parking at Dix Creek, going to the border and back, which is it's about 17 or 18 miles. It's a pretty good run. I like it though. Definitely my favorite section.
So prior to this attempt, like we said, you've done it a couple of times already. You've done some other difficult races, such as the Georgia Death Race, which I know was a challenge of its own. So what do you like take from those other experiences to bring to this one? What do you learn from it and going into this new attempt?
The one thing that I've definitely learned from ultra running is you learn a lot more from failure than you do success. And I've had some successful races and I didn't learn a whole lot from them. You know, like, oh, okay, well, what I knew was going to work worked, and I'm not surprised, you know. But then whenever you have a bad day and your stomach cramps or you get sick or you get dehydrated because you didn't bring a bladder and you brought bottles for Georgia Death Race and stuff like that, you know, like those mistakes, like I learned every time I've had a bad day, I've learned so much getting ready for this, to where really it was a tropical storm that kind of ruined my day. Like I was trying to outrun a tropical storm and I failed. So, and even then I still got the record. So I guess it's not a ruined day, just a little suboptimal on the back end, just a little bit.
So planning out to do something like this takes a lot of effort. It's not just a typical race where everything's kind of laid out for you. So what was the process of planning it all together? What was your initial ideas with like fueling and gear and everything? Kind of walk us through preparing for this leading up to it.
So when was it? Was it after 7 trails, after I had to stop at 100K at 7 trails? A couple of days later, I called my friend who was up there crewing for me, Michelle, who helped me the first time I did it and the second time I went for it, the Georgia AT. And I called her and was like, I'm going for it again, and this is when I'm doing it. I was like, you know, probably 3rd week in June. And she immediately was like, okay, this is what we're not going to do this time, because she's been there with me for it and everything. So we started planning for it in April is when we started planning. So we had April, May, June. We had probably a solid month and a half of planning. Logistically, it's hard because as soon as you start having pacers and safety runners with you, you have to worry about how are they going to get back to their cars. Some of these stretches are 16-mile stretches with like 5,500 feet elevation gain. You know, they're not going to turn around and want to run back to their car, you know, like they need a ride. So you have to factor in how you're going to have rides for these people. And then like just your basic stuff like nutrition. It's hard to plan nutrition even because it's not a race where you know like, oh, every 7 miles I'll have an aid station. You know, the first time you see your crew, you are over 12 miles into your day already, you know, including the hike up to the border. So you got 12 miles already before you even get your first, like a half marathon before you even get your first like water refill. And then you have, I think, a 16-mile segment and then another like 14-mile segment, you know, like right out the gate, you have 3 big segments where you have got to have all your nutrition and everything really thought out. So I went with Spring Energy always. It's my go-to. Awesome Sauce. I was sucking down 2 Awesome Sauce gels every hour, plus a half a bottle of pina colada drink mix for about 15 hours. And then I was like, okay, I'm not doing anything anymore because I'm sick to my stomach. So, but yeah, it's as soon as you can figure out how to get your pacers around, it's a lot easier, because if you can get your pacers back and forth, then you can have someone waiting for you at the gaps. And it was hard for us this time because of the weather. I was supposed to start at 5 o'clock in the morning from the border, I woke my crew person up at 1 o'clock because I was camping at Dix Creek and was like, hey, we're going like right now. I was like, you need to go and send some text messages and tell some people they need to wake up. And she did, and they got there. And I was super lucky. I could have spent the first half of the day by myself, honestly. And I was prepared to, but yeah, I got really lucky with that. So, and that's also another thing too with FKTs. Most of the time it's supposed to be like perfect conditions. People don't go after a 75-mile record attempt if you're like, oh, there's a chance I could run into a tropical storm. There's a chance I could not have pacers for 36 miles. There's a chance I might not have my nutrition at some point because someone's having to get a ride back from my crew. So I definitely like kind of rolled the dice a little bit on it, but I've done it so many times that it's being the third time out there, I kind of knew more than anything it was on me. And like all I had to do is just stay reserved and just stay reserved until you get to the top of Blood Mountain. And I knew that from checking Lauren Jones, the overall record holder. I checked her splits versus James Ray's splits, the previous medal holder. And even the Ben and Allison Mercer unsupported team, checked their splits too. Most people kind of start losing their gusto coming off of blood. And it's because you went probably a little too hard for the first 50. And I mean, there's a lot of good running in the first 50, so it makes sense, but there's still a marathon left when you get to Neal's Gap, so you better have something left in your legs.
So you woke up your crew member at 1 a.m. in the morning, kind of freaking everyone out, changing the plans at the last second, and they all thankfully go through with it with you. Start bringing us through the actual experience. You've hiked up to the North Carolina border, and now it's time to do the FKT. How was that?
So you drop in at a place called Charlie's Creek Road, which it used to be a super gnarly Forest Service road that was almost undrivable, but they just redid it luckily. So I got dropped in, and it's about half a mile hike up to the AT to Blue Ridge Gap, which is the last gap in Georgia. And then you have about 3 miles up to the border. And it's a nice 3 miles, and there's a few little downhills, but both my other attempts, I got a little eager and gave it a little jog down the downhills and stuff. I was like, I can hurry up and get there so I can start. Didn't do that this time. I walked every step of those 3 miles up there. I took my time. I think it took me like, an hour and 20 minutes to hike 3 miles. I've never hiked so slow in my life, just because I knew what was coming. Got up to the border, and I went to the first white blaze past the border, which is about an extra 100 feet or so, just to make sure for GPS discrepancies. If anyone needed to zoom in, you would see that I was past the line, in case. Started my Garmin InReach that one of my pacers let me borrow. Started my watch and took off, and it was really hard not taking off at like a 9-minute mile, because the first 3 miles down, you can just absolutely fly. And like I kept it super reserved through there. But the weird thing, it was really hot that morning, even the night before while we were trying to camp. Like it was probably like in the 80s at 11 o'clock. And in a gap, the way gaps are situated, that's usually not the case. Usually it's a little bit cooler and you have a breeze, but it's super stagnant, super stale, super hot. Same thing all the way up to the border and all the way back down to Dix Creek. And even once we left Dix Creek after I had my first pacer, because I did the first section alone, picked up my first pacer at Dix. And when I got there, it looked like I had taken a shower. And I wasn't working that hard, but it's just that hot. And leaving out of Dix, because I'd only slept about 2.5 hours, I got really tired every time we would start to hike. And it felt like vertigo. Everything would start spinning, and I would start falling to the left and the right. And this is about mile 15, and I even told my pacer, I was like, I don't know if I can keep up. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, this is dangerous at this point. Like, that's 150 foot to my left, and I'm about to fall off of it. And he reminded me that caffeine exists, and I appreciate him for that, because I ate some Cliff Blocks, and about a mile later, I was cruising. We were good to go. No more issues for the rest of the day on that front. It went real easy. everything went just how it should until about we got to hog pen, which is the halfway mark. And when we got to hog pen, that was the first time I had actually really got to see the sky. Because you have so much tree cover, you can't really see what the weather's doing. And I got to hog pen and looked up, and that storm was definitely closing in on us at that point. Made it to Neals, and by the time we got to Neals, which is only 5.5 miles, 6 miles from hog pen, by the time we got there, it actually had started like raining okay. And I just put my rain jacket on, threw my pack over it, and we took off up Blood. The climb up Blood was pretty easy, even though it was raining. And as we descended to Woody, it started unloading on us, especially the last like 3 miles. And by the time we got to Woody's Gap, it was so foggy and so rainy, you couldn't see 150 feet across the street. And it's still in daylight. You know, we're still in no headlamps needed. And so that's when everything kind of started getting a little suboptimal, you know, because you have to kind of just deal with it at that point. And I had some ramen there that didn't sit well with me. And the next stop was 4 miles past Woody at Gooch Gap. And when I got to Gooch Gap, I had to stop and like completely throw up everything that was in my stomach. And the next 18 miles was more about like what can you keep down than anything else while you're going through tropical storm, up and down mountains and ridge lines. It made it really interesting. Definitely makes for a better story than it was beautiful and dry all day and we just crushed it. So, because it's definitely not that. We crushed it for a while and then we got crushed for a solid 5 hours.
So at what point during the actual run did you realize you had the record, that you felt confident that you had the men's supported FKT?
I knew at Woody. And even at Woody, I think I had 6.5 hours to beat Lauren's time. And I had jokingly said, I was like, oh, 6.5 hours to do 22 miles. There's no way I'm going to mess this up. Probably shouldn't have said that because she still has the overall record. But I knew at Woody that I had the men's record just because I had I think I had, what was it, like 8 hours or something, close to 8 hours or 7:45 or something to do it. And I was like, even if I walk every mile, I can do that at this point. So I knew it. But then as the weather got worse and worse towards Springer, I started getting a little worried because I was like, we're not moving as fast as I want to be moving right now. Like a 23-minute mile is, I don't know, how much time do I have? So I got a little worried for a second there. Like, I really hope I don't twist an ankle or something. Like, But yeah, at Woody, I was pretty sure, like, we got this, we're good. And I was satisfied with it, too, at that point, just because with weather and, you know, you can only be so picky at that point. And I was like, cool, if that's all we get, then that's more than enough. Because that's all I was out there to get was, you know, just set the men's record. That's always been the goal, so.
So you finished the run, you're at Springer Mountain, kind of walk through that feeling. How was it finally getting there after 20.5 hours?
It was actually awful because of the weather. I'm not gonna lie, like I wish it was this amazing moment where like I summited Springer and like put my hand on the plaque, and none of that. We got to the top of Springer and we were in like lightning, thunder. It was bad. And so we got up there and I had my friend take a picture of my watch at the sign, and I stopped it and I was like, get me off of this mountain, please. So I didn't really get to enjoy it until like the next day, after I had went to sleep and like getting stuff out of my car. I was like, it kind of hit. I was like, we got that done. Like, thank God we got that done, because I really didn't want to do it again. So not that fast. I'll do it again, but not that fast.
So you complete this FKT, and then you have to start to recover. And I've seen you posted a couple of pictures on Instagram, Facebook, like that, of these different foods you've been eating over the last few days. So how is it to recover from an experience like this?
So I have heard from a lot of experienced runners with a more traditional background in road running and stuff like that, that typically you give yourself a day for every 10 miles of hard effort. That's like the rule of thumb I've heard. But I also have some friends who have done a lot of like 100 milers and stuff like that, non-traditional road running, and I would probably say I have more of a non-traditional running background, you know. And one of them suggested, they're like, you know, if you're not that sore and you've had a few, like 3 or 4 days, you're like, go and run a couple miles and just see how it feels. I was like, I don't know, man. That's breaking the rule, isn't it? You know, like, can I do that? Like, okay, I'll try that. And I went and ran 2 miles, and I was like, oh, my feet were still hurting because my feet had been wet all day from the attempt. But like besides that, I ate good food and I didn't do anything. I didn't go for like I went on some walks, but like I just made sure I was eating like good quality food, not worrying about like am I having too much sugar? Am I having too much fat? Am I having too many carbs? Like none of the, you know, it's 20 and a half hours is a long time and your body wants everything after that. So I gave it to it for a solid like 3 or 4 days. I actually have a friend who's a triathlete and he checked up on me on the 4th day. And he was like, how much did you weigh before the attempt? And I happened to know and I told him. And he was like, how much do you weigh right now? And I told him, and he was like, you can go back to eating a normal amount of food. I was like, okay, cool, thanks. He was like, maybe you've been enjoying it a little too much. I'm like, all right, cool, thanks for the advice.
And just to wrap things up, you've done all these races, you got this FKT under your belt now. What's next? What else do you have on the schedule?
So I have Speed Goat 50K next month. Not sure. I signed up for that while recovering from hernia surgery. I was still under like the sedative from the surgery, and I was like, hey, there's spots. Let's do that. So here we are. And I'm on the wait list for the Pikes Peak Marathon. Again, stupid idea, but here we are. The big thing though is Georgia Jewel 100 for the first 100-mile attempt in September. So I will start my training vlog for that probably next week. So was gonna start it tomorrow, but kind of rolled my ankle yesterday in the Smokies, so we'll wait a week.
Yeah, that sounds like the smart idea.
Yeah.
Well, cool. That's definitely some big races coming up. First 100-miler, that's a big deal.
Going for top 10.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm going out there full send, like top 10.
Awesome.
Let's get it. Yeah, I'm either gonna full send get it, or I'm gonna go out there and end up having to walk about 45 miles, like thinking about my decisions. So.
All right, man. So with your 100-miler, we'll definitely be watching out for that. I'm sure we'll get plenty of other runs together before then. That sounds really exciting.
Yeah, let's do
so thanks for being here today. We're happy to have Daniel today with us, and we hope to see more great things coming up.
Cool.
Do you know how many calories you burned during the attempt?
I think I burned, was it 11,000? 11,000 calories, yeah. Plus your daily burn too, so you're talking probably 13,000, something like that.
So that's some good eating.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, because I took in, realistically though, I probably put in about, I don't know, 65% of those back in during the run. And like as a runner, you know, to try it, you're never going to be able to put the same amount of calories back in that you're putting out. So like I figured about a 65% like re-intake during the run. I was like, I was pretty proud of that. That's hard to do too. It's hard to stay that disciplined and just, ooh, I really don't want to suck down to gel, but I'm going to.